Hi, so sorry I can't be with you in person. I mean, it's none of our faults, but this is the world we live in. So if we haven't met on campus yet, my name is Cassandra. I'm the career specialist for the College of Communications. Welcome to my living room. This is the place where I can film this from. So today I am going to go over with you how to write a resume, what needs to go on it, what shouldn't be on it. I will interject slides into this, but I highly, highly recommend you get out pen and paper and start taking notes so that you can have an awesome resume to get you that next internship or job. Okay? So first I want to talk about how your resume works in your job search. By definition, a resume is a marketing tool. It is not what's going to get you the job, it's what's going to get you the interview. You want a resume that makes the recruiter go, God, we got to bring this person in. It's something to intrigue them, to make them go, okay, on paper, they look like they could do this job, so let's give them a call or an email and let's set up an interview. So keep that in mind. It doesn't get you the job, but it needs to prove like, hey, I have the skills to do the job so that they want to bring you in. Now, with that in mind, I've been talking about this more and more recently. You need to start thinking like a recruiter. You need to give your resume the utmost care every single time you apply, so that when a recruiter sees it, they go, we need to talk to this person. You need to be thinking, how is my resume stacking up to all those others? Now, granted, they're probably looking online, but let's say they printed out all the resumes of everyone who applied. Why are they going to pull yours from that stack? So that's why we have to give some time and care to our resume. You can't just kind of half do it and say, like a bullet point that says, communicate with customers. What's going to make me pull you from the stack because of that? So keep that in mind. Every time you do your resume, think through, have I done enough that it's going to make them want to pull me from this stack and call me for an interview? So I want to talk about what I call the resume commandments, if you will. These are some things you need to know about resumes. So first off, things to do. Number one, you are going to tailor your resume every time you go for a job. So instead of hitting easy apply on Indeed or just saying, yeah, you can use my LinkedIn profile, or just uploading one resume to any sort of site, even your school site, you need to tailor that resume every time. So I would rather you apply to 5 internships or jobs where you've taken the time to change the wording and tweak it to match their job description than to hit easy apply, or as my recruiting friends call it, spray and pray, of just sending out 20, 50 resumes. You're going to get a much stronger internship or job if you've really tailored it to those ones you really, really want, because you're much more likely to get called in that way. So tailor your resume every time. And to help you, I will show you at the end of this how to easily tailor, kind of the system to tailor your resume without starting from scratch every time. So know that in what we're talking about today, we are going to be building a master resume. That's what I call it. So it is your resume with absolutely everything on it. Every job you've done, volunteer experience, education, course project, etc. And then you will use that to create tailored ones to each job. So you tailor your resume every time. Then another resume do, you have to maintain current contact information. Now, this seems like a no-brainer, but things happen. I once left a job and had to give up my company phone with that job, got a new phone, and the next day I had to send my resume to someone and I completely forgot, oh my gosh, I didn't put my new phone number on it. So make sure you're keeping on top of that. Also, if you're in college and it's summer, are you changing your email address? Or did you use your school email address on your resume and now you're at home and you're like, I don't need to look at school stuff, and you're only checking your Gmail? Make sure whatever email you put on your resume is the one you are going to be checking. This next one isn't quite as much of a problem anymore, but you want to use a professional email. People back in the day, used to have crazy emails based off like, Supergirl fan 123, whatever. It doesn't work. You need to have an email that sounds professional. So first initial, last name, first name, last name. If you have to add numbers because you haven't created one of these yet, that's okay. But I highly, highly recommend not putting your birth year. So if it's Cass Thompson 98, it just kind of tells me like, cool, I know how old you are. And that could give a wrong impression about you. So I just want to keep you from that issue. If you already have one that has that, don't panic about it, that has like your birth year at the end. Maybe you put 2000. Don't panic. It's not the end of the world. But if you're creating one from scratch, I wouldn't put that year. Okay. Next you have to be honest. Obviously, please do not lie on a resume. Make sure you are telling the truth. But I will say, sometimes I think people get a little too honest on resumes. Like they'll go, oh, I only know basic Microsoft Word or basic Excel. You don't need to tell them that. Just write Excel. If they need to know what level, they'll give you a test. So just stick to the facts. Don't overdo it on giving details of how not great you are at something, but also please don't lie and say you have a skill that you don't have. Okay, this next one is one that's an issue a lot. You need to make sure that on your past jobs, you're using past tense in your bullet points, and in your current job, you're using present tense in your bullet points, and not active present tense, just present tense. So here's what I mean. This one is really easy to mess up when we get a new job and we add it to our resume. Don't forget, number one, to go back to your last job and change all of those bullet points to past tense. Then for the new job, you want to say, communicate with customers, blah, 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 blah. Not communicating with customers or developing, yada, yada, yada. No, develop. You're not actively doing it. It's just present tense. Of course, next, continuously update your resume. So if you get a new internship this summer, or if you just started a new job, you want to go in and at least add your new title, company name, start date through present onto your experience section on your master. So you're just ready to update it. And then the best way to do this is once you get some new skills, go and put those in bullet point form on the resume immediately, because we've all been there. You get to the point where you haven't worked on any of this in a while and you go, what did I do in this job? What is this about? What am I doing? So make sure you're continuously updating. And oh, this one's so important. Please, please, please proofread. Okay, some tips on proofreading your resume. You should use Grammarly. You should use the Microsoft features on, spelling and all of that. But do not just rely on those. Read it for yourself as well. Read it out loud. And here's my tip to you. If you've been looking at it so long that you're like, it's just letters and numbers, I can't anymore, it doesn't look like words. Start at the very bottom and read right to left instead of left to right. Then your eye will really look at everything. But proofreading is more than just making sure words are spelled correctly. Your format and alignment have to be correct at all times. So no mistakes. If you have all your bullet points here and one gets spaced over, that's a problem. If you have a period at the end of one bullet point, you have to have periods at the end of every bullet point. So make sure you're consistent throughout. If you have a space after education, it's education, space, and then your school name. When you get down to experience, it needs to be experience, space, your company name, right? And then another space before the next company. So make sure you're keeping those things all aligned perfectly. Okay, resume don'ts. You do not include I statements. So you never say the word I on a resume. You actually never use full sentences. So never, I created and developed a program for all orientation leaders. No, it's just, think of the I as being before the bullet point. So I created and developed presentations and trainings for all orientation leaders. Like it's hidden. So never say I on a resume, never say we, they, None of those words go on a resume. We actually don't talk in full sentences at all. You never include on a resume your employer's address, their salary information, etc. You also, I've seen some people put a little description of the company under the company name and title. They give a little description of the company before going into bullet points. Nobody needs that. I'm looking at your resume to see what you did in the company. I don't care what the company did. I just need to know what you did for them. So none of that information goes there. You also do not put your boss's name at this point, anything of that nature. That would all go on a references page, which is separate. Which, hey, leads to my next point. You do not include references on your resume. It's not a section at the bottom, nor do you need to say, references available upon request. Yeah, you want the job. If I ask you for references, you will say yes. You don't need to give permission. So just take that line off. No one needs it. The next one's a big one, and we'll talk about it even more later in formatting, but you should never have a photograph on your resume. The only place where I know this is somewhat different is if you are a pastor looking to go to a church. They do sometimes want a picture, but overall, you should not have a picture on your resume. I know there are a lot of templates out there right now showing a picture. Pictures lead to discrimination. In fact, a lot of companies have a policy that if you have a picture on your resume, you will automatically be put in the no pile solely because they don't even want to be touched with a claim of discrimination. So do not put a picture on your resume, no matter how pretty that template on Canva looked to you. You do not need to disclose personal information on a resume. So no resume should include your marital status, your age, your weight, your eye color, unless age and weight, if you're an actor, those you do actually have to put. But everything else, like your status as in the military, things like that, none of that needs to be put on a resume. That's none of their business. Okay, last one. You do not use slang or conjunctions in a resume. So no saying like, totally. I don't know why you would do that, but I feel like I have to say it because some people just don't understand. And then no conjunctions. So you don't combine words. No will, wouldn't. I don't know why those words would come up on a resume, but just in case, you don't use them. So here's what every recruiter tells me they want on a resume. I talk with recruiters all the time. I bring them on campus to talk to students, and without fail, they will say, I just want a clean, polished resume. They do not care about creativity, unless it's graphic design. We'll talk more about that in a minute. They just want a clean, polished resume. Now, what does that mean? It means that your format is consistent, like I talked about before. So if you have education is all caps and bold, experience is all caps and bold, skills are all caps and bold. And because those are all caps and bold, I would recommend changing the format for your school name and your company names. So maybe those are just all caps. And then your title and your degree should be something different. So maybe those are all caps and italics. You want to play with those things so that they stand out from each other, but then consistent throughout. Clean formatting also means that it's really easy to read. It's why I really suggest staying away from columns as much as possible, because if you have it in just all bullet points aligned on one side, the eye can go straight down the page. It makes it a lot easier to read. Clean also means you're not playing with 5 different fonts. We don't have 12 colors going on the page, or even 3. You have the consistency of your bullet points, not being, like I said earlier, a period at the end of one and not at others. You didn't change sizes on things. You just want it to look clean. And this is why we set up a master, so that we can do this one time, make it really clean and polished, and then we just follow that format when we add something new. There are 3 core sections on your resume, and then there's some other sections that can be used additionally, but they're not necessary. So the 3 that have to be on the resume are your education, your experience, and your skills. Now, your education is only schools where you received a degree. So if you transferred from somewhere and you just did credit transfers, you didn't get an associate's degree, or you took a couple of classes at a community college during the summer, those do not go on your resume. Only the schools from which you received a degree. This is also a spot where I like to mention, if we are needing to save space on a resume, I would only put where you received a bachelor's and not where you received an associate's and a bachelor's, because the associate's is what got you to the school with the bachelor's. If you only have your bachelor degree listed, no one's going to be like, but did they transfer? No one cares. They just want to see where you got your degree. So do not worry about putting both schools if we are really trying to get space. And for that school section, you can add your GPA if it's a 3.0 or higher, but I think this partially depends on industry. If you are an engineer, computer science, that GPA matters a lot. If you're PR, no one cares. Like, they're hiring you based off your skills, not on your GPA. So you can put it, you don't have to put it. Last two things to know about this section. Make sure you are writing out your school name completely. So it's, in this case, California State University, Fullerton. Or, you wouldn't write UCLA, you write out the full school name. So write it out completely. And then for your bachelor degree, it's a Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science, not a Bachelor's of Arts. It gets confusing because we all just, in conversation, call it a bachelor's degree, but for the actual way it's listed, it's Bachelor of Arts or Science. So that experience section, couple of things to know. You need to have at least one experience section, but it is on you to name these the way you want. So if you have volunteer experience, intern experience, and work experience, you could make 3 different sections, or you could make just one that says experience and you list all those different types of experiences under it. You didn't say they're paid experiences or professional experiences. They could all be listed in the same section. So just know you can break those up. You can also put them all in one section. The key thing to note in the experience section is it's always the most recent job first. So whatever you are doing currently goes first, and then whatever you did before that goes second, before that, third, right? You've got to keep those in order. So when you are talking about your experiences, you always want to put the organization name, city, state, your title underneath, and then you'll put the dates all the way to the right. And I will show you in a little bit an easy way to do that. So the reason why I put it this way is a lot of us have had more than one job at a company, and by writing the company name first, you can do the company name, title, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point of what you did at that position, and then the next title and bullet point that. You don't have to write the company name twice. So that's why I recommend going company first. And then you always have bullet points on your resume, never paragraphs. So you will do bullet points under each job. And we'll talk about those in a couple minutes. So for that skills section, the skills section should be hard skills only. What's a hard skill? A hard skill is software, social media, and languages. You never put soft skills in this section. Soft skills are things like communication, attention to detail, leadership. People love to go in the skills section and put strong leader, excellent communicator. Oh, think about it. As a recruiter or hiring manager, I'm supposed to look at that and go, well, they said it. It must be true. Like, you can't just say you're a strong communicator. Prove those sorts of things in your bullet points. But in the skills section, you can list hard skills. So those are things to think of this way. Could I give you some sort of online test to prove that skill. I can give you a test on social media. I can give you a test on software. I can even give you a test on languages, right? Duolingo has taught us that. I can give you a test to see if you really have conversational Spanish. So those sorts of things go in the skills section. A couple of other notes on skills section. Please never put proficient in the skills section. If you weren't proficient, it shouldn't be listed. So just get straight to the point. Bullet point, Microsoft Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Bullet point, social media, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, any of the LinkedIn, any of those things can go there. You want to just get straight to it. This is the one section where sometimes you will need columns because it's too much to list them all down the page. It's taking up a lot of room, that you might want to make 2 columns for this section. Also, for any of my people who are working in the film industry, you can put any sort of equipment here. So if you know different types of cameras to use, soundboards, mics, etc., you could list those things as well. And let's remember, you're only going to list the skills that matter to this position. So keep that in mind. So those were the 3 core sections. There are other sections you can put on a resume. So if you have course projects that would really highlight your skills in a much more industry-related way, you can always add those in a course project section. So you would just put course project, the name of the course, and then the course project name, and then bullet point it just like you would a job experience. Please do not put the course section number. Like, don't write COM 395. Nobody outside of your school knows what that is. So just write it as PR writing, right? If that's what the course really is about, or advertising or multimedia advertising, right? And then talk about the project name and then bullet point what you did in the project. That's another section you can use. Another strategy that I really like to use on a resume to make sure that your most important work is at the top is to have a relevant experience section and an additional experience section. So let's remember, your experiences always have to be written most recent first, but that's by section. So stick with me on this, but let's say you currently are working at Walgreens, okay? But last summer, you had an internship at a PR agency, and your future is a PR entry-level job. That's what you want to do next. Those are the types of jobs you're applying to. If you only have just a general experience section, your job as a customer service person at Walgreens is going to come first. Then your internship from last summer comes after it. But if you make a relevant experience section, you can now put the internship there, bullet points, then make a new section that says additional experience, and we put our job at Walgreens. And now your internship is higher on the page. So the most relevant things get seen first. So that's just one little extra tip for you. You might want to use that sort of section. Other sections you may want to include organizations, memberships, student organizations, and if you were just a member, you were solely going to put bullet point, the name of the organization, and the years you've been a member. You do not need to put the word member. It's implied since you're writing that you're in these organizations. If you've had a leadership position, write it the same way you would any of your paid work experiences. So the name of the organization, your title as a leader, and then bullet point what you do in that leadership position. So let's talk a little bit more about that format and how to get it set up fast. This is what I recommend you do. Well, 2 things. If you've never set up a resume, just go into a blank Word document and write your name and then your phone number and your email, and then leave a space and write the word education and then write your school name and your degree. We're not formatting anything yet. Just get that basic information out there. Then write experience and write your company name, city, state, and your title underneath. Then the next company name, city, state, the title underneath. Those sorts of things. Just get the basics on the page. Then you're going to go in and start formatting. So maybe we make our name a bit bigger. We really want it to stand out. Make sure your phone number and your email address are centered. Then start playing with your formatting and putting education, experience, and skills in all caps and bold, let's say. And then put your company name in bold. And same with your school name, those sorts of things. So put those all in order. And then we'll come back and write the bullet points to go under these sections. So here's where I want to talk about traditional or creative resumes. I see so many creative resumes going around. Canva has them, Google Docs have them, Microsoft Office has templates. And overall, I think you should stay away from templates in general. My experience has been that they never have enough room for you to show what actually is necessary to demonstrate that you can do the job, right? Because they've put in these columns that now take up 2 margins, and so you have less space to talk about things. It includes things that don't actually help. So for example, on that first slide, there's so much space being taken up with the icons of what he loves to do. That first one has so much about what I love to do. Well, I don't care what you love to do. I need to see that you can do the job that I'm looking to hire someone for. But so much space is being taken up there with what they love to do. Yet the experience literally just has 1 bullet point under each experience that says something like edited photos, which go back to the beginning. Why would I pull you from the stack for that reason? And then under skills, there's those dots showing how much he knows each skill. So here's something interesting. When I first saw that on a resume, I thought that was really cool. I'm like, oh, that's a really good way to show that. That looks really nice. And then I talked to recruiters and they said, I hate those dots or those little thermometer bars trying to tell me how much they know. All it does is tell me you have one skill less than another because there's 4 dots out of 5. And I don't know what 5 dots means. We didn't all get together and decide that. So you're actually not telling me anything and it's wasting space where you could be telling me other skills, using that room to give me another experience, something that will make me bring you in. So most creative resumes are a bit of a waste of space. And most recruiters and hiring managers I've talked to have said they don't really care about a creative. They just want to see that you can do the job. So remember, content trumps creativity, okay? You have to get all the content on the page first that would make me bring you in. And then if you want to make your name eggplant purple or your education and experience and skills navy blue, some other color, you can do that. If you want to change your bullet points to diamonds, go right ahead. But wasting time trying to make it look pretty when there's not enough room to put in the actual content to tell me you can do the job is a big waste of your time because you're not going to get pulled in. That second resume goes more to my issue with space. When you first look at it, it looks really clean, right? The one that says Jeremy Marsh. Well, here's the issue. Once again, that experience section doesn't really give me enough space to tell me actual skills. It's also all out of order. There's context, and then profile, and then skills, and then experience, and then education, and then awards. It's in a very messed up order, and a study came out saying that recruiters only look at a resume for 6 seconds, and so that's why we want it all easy to read and just down the page. Write down 1 line as much as possible instead of this column thing and where do I look and where do I go. It actually makes it much harder to read and there's not enough on the page. So that last one, that is a miniature version of my own resume. In higher ed, we do tend to have longer bullet points, so that's why some of mine are a little bit long, but you can see everything is very easy to go straight down the page and read. One thing I didn't talk about before, You'll notice on that one, education is at the very bottom. That's because I've graduated and had a job. If you are still in college or you're a recent grad, you keep your education at the top until you get your first full-time position out of school, then move that to the bottom of the page. The other reason why I recommend a traditional resume over a creative is because it's going to be much easier to tailor every time if it's in this very basic format. Remember, once again, other than graphic designers, recruiters and hiring managers have said, I don't care if it's creative, I just want to see the information. So if you have a creative resume with all these columns and you're trying to tailor it every time, you're going to have to move a bunch of things around to make things fit on a page. If you have a traditional resume and we're going to tailor it, it's going to be much easier to tailor when all you're doing is adding a new bullet point, deleting a bullet point. You're not going to have to adjust colors and column widths and things like that because it's just adding and deleting in one vertical section. Okay, so let's talk about bullet points. This is my formula for writing bullet points to make it easy on you. It is action verb plus the task plus how or why. Now, to help you with action verbs, we have a whole list of those in our career guide and also on our website on fullerton.edu/career. You can check that out there. So you're going to do the action verb plus the task plus how or why. That is a great bullet point. So what does that look like? Let's say you're a server at Chili's. You are going to look through that list and see, oh yeah, I communicate with people. Great. So you're going to start with communicate with customers. Well, let's add a little more detail to it. Communicate, what do you communicate with customers? Okay. Communicate with customers, all specials. Okay. Great. Why? Right? You're going to be able to tell if it should be a how or a why pretty easily. You use how most of the time when you want to demonstrate a skill, like utilizing a specific software or program, something like that. In this case, it would be weird to say how, like by words verbally, auditorily coming out of my mouth and them receiving them. It wouldn't make sense. So this is clearly a why. So communicate with customers, all specials. Why? Could be different reasons. To ensure excellent customer service. Great. Or is it to assist team in meeting all restaurant sales goals? And then you can add a result and say, resulting in store being #1 in the region 4 months in a row. Dang, right? It really changes it. So and one is not better than the other depending on the job, but you want to give some sort of why. The why helps paint the picture of what you did and what you could do for their company. Now, if you want to make your bullet point awesome, you want to add that result or accomplishment. Now, I want to remind you once again at this point, if all you have is the action verb plus the task plus how or why, that is a great bullet point. Not every bullet point has a result or accomplishment. I worked at Express in college. I did not have a result of like resulting in 80% of cashmere sweaters sold during the holiday season. I didn't know. I don't know what those numbers were. So they don't all have to have results, but if you can add a result or an accomplishment, that's going to make it even stronger. The other thing you want to do is quantify on bullet points as much as possible. So if you can add numbers, it's going to really help paint that picture a little bit better. Okay, so here are some places where I think you can add numbers. If you work with any sort of budget, you can add numbers, right? Tell me the budget you've worked with. If you've had any sort of sales goal you've had to meet and you met it, tell me the goal. If you've increased anything, that could be social media. You can give me impressions, followers, subscribers, etc. And then one I see missed a lot, especially with people looking at entry level, is training other employees. If you've worked at a company long enough that they've given you the leadership responsibility to train new employees, please do not just say, trained new employees. How many? And if with any of these, if you can't find the specific number, you can always say 40 plus, 70,000 plus. Anything like that totally works. And if it's a number under 10, you can still write it as a numeric. This is not an APA style paper, so feel free to write it as a numeric even though it's under 10. So let's say you trained 7 new employees. That's perfectly fine. Write it as a numeral 7. The beauty of using numbers in your resume is not just that it helps paint the picture, I can see it better, but also that in the middle of all those letters, I see a number and my eye stops on it. So you may want to think about using numbers very, very strategically. Okay, so here's how I recommend you create these bullet points. I want you to go through that action verbs sheet, print it out, and just go down the list with one job in mind and highlight any word that you go, yep, I've done that thing. Yep, I've done that thing. Oh yeah, I delegated this. Oh, I communicated that. Oh, I created something. Yep, highlight those words. Then go back and if you're like me, I need to handwrite things to really process it, but if you want to type it, that's fine. Choose one word and add the task. So your action verb is communicate. Say, okay, what did I do? I communicated with other sales reps our quotas and goals for the quarter. Okay, that's not bad. Let it be plain spoken. Let it be ugly. One of the first rules of writing is write crappy first drafts, and that goes to resumes as well. So write it ugly the first time, and then you can go back and revise it. So if it takes you 3 lines to write out what you're trying to say your task was, that's fine. And why you did it, totally okay. Now you'll go back and revise it until it sounds a little more professional. You've taken out words that don't need to be there until it hits a really nice solid bullet point. So I recommend you do that for each of your jobs. You want 3 to 5 bullet points normally per position. Every now and then you might have a job with 2, but normally it's 3 to 5. And since we are making a master resume, I want you to think of as many bullet points as possible for each job. We're going to let your master resume get long. And that goes to something we haven't discussed yet. So, should your resume be more than 1 page? Very rarely. Your resume most likely should be 1 page. It should be that you can describe what you've done that's relevant to this position you're applying for in 1 page. If it is longer than a page, I really want you to ask yourself, is everything I'm sharing relevant? We don't need to add a bunch of other stuff of everything we've ever done on a resume if it's now making it muddy and cloudy for the recruiter or hiring manager to see the pieces that relate to them. So you want to make sure that you're only showing on the resume you apply with the pieces that are most important to the recruiter or the hiring manager, and everything else can go away. So sometimes it is 2 pages, but I really want you to check, did I need to say everything on these 2 pages, or could it be 1 page? Other things to help you keep it at 1 page, please notice I have not talked about an objective because that's an old school thing and you do not need one. So take off an objective. Then, do you still have 1-inch margins all the way around? I would bump those out all the way around to 1/2 inch. It's still printer quality. It'll be able to print no problem, but you've busted out your space as far as possible. And this is another reason why I'm not a fan of the columns, because it adds an extra margin and then you lose space. It's harder to get more information on 1 page. Now you might be like, hey, I know how I'll get it to 1 page. I'll make everything a 9-point font. This is the time to tell you, an 11-point font is about as low as we go. People's eyesight goes as they get older. They are not going to hit enlarge so that they can read your resume. If they can't read it, they're gonna pass on by. So just make sure your font is an 11-point as your minimum. I recommend your subject headers be a 12 or an 11-point font, and then your bullet points can be an 11. So at this point, you should have a master resume ready to go. But how do you then tailor it to a specific job? So this is the process I do. It should work for you as well. I recommend you print off a job description of the job you want to apply for. Then go through it and highlight anything that you have experience with. Anything that you've done, highlight it on the job description. Now, you're going to take your master resume, hit select all, copy and paste it in a brand new Word document. Delete everything in it that is not most relevant to this job until we hit a page, okay? So for example, let's say you've had 3 server positions. Well, we might not, and you've got 2 internships that are related to this position. We might not need all 3 server positions. Let's delete the older 2 and only leave the most recent one. We want them to see that we've had work experience, but they maybe don't need to see every job you've ever done when a lot of those jobs are similar. So delete until we get to 1 page. Now, go look at those pieces you highlighted and look at your bullet points and see which ones you need to change the wording on so that it matches the wording in the job description. The way your resume gets found a lot by recruiters or gets automatically kind of pulled from the pile is that the words in your resume match the words in the job description. Your resume, when you apply online, is being scanned by an applicant tracking system to see how many words in it match the job description. And based off that, they will give you like a green light, a red light, maybe a yellow light. And if you're green, you're most likely to be checked by the recruiter and put in the interview pile. So you want to make sure you're matching that job description as much as possible. So that's why I highlight, and then I'll go through my resume and either tweak a bullet or create a brand new bullet to match the wording in their job description. And sometimes it might just be one word that's changed. Sometimes it's a phrase that's changed. So make sure you're changing the words. Then it might be a little over a page again. I will scan it one more time, see what's absolutely necessary, see if there's anything that's distracting in terms of it's a bullet point that it's kind of helpful, but it's not key to this position. I'll take those out. And then save this new resume as your first initial, last name, and either shortened, an abbreviated version of the company name or an abbreviated version of the title. Please do not save this as my resume or resume. Remember, this is going to another human being and it's going to be in a pile with 500 resumes and they're not going to know what resume is. But if your resume is easy to find because you've labeled it with your last name, it's going to make them want to look at it again because they could just find it easily. You don't want to annoy them in any way. So making it easy for them to find your resume is kind of like a nice little way of standing out. Make the process on a recruiter as easy as possible. So that is it. I hope this has been helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions. You all can still make appointments with me on the Career Center website. It's at fullerton.edu/career. Just click on the schedule appointment tab and you can see me there. Also, once you've made your resume, I highly recommend you run it through VMock. You can find that on our Career Center website as well, and then it'll redirect you to VMock. It's essentially the same as meeting with me because the things that VMock is going to tell you to correct are because I told them those are the things to correct. So if you can't find a time to meet with me or you want to do this over the weekend, I'm not available, feel free to use that tool to your advantage. So thank you so much, you guys. I hope you're having a great time at home and I hope to see you next year. Bye.